You're listening to Parasearch UK Radio. News, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. Parasearch UK Radio.
The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch UK Radio or its affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised. You're listening to Kerry, Greenaway and Mark Manley on the Dark Mirror Paranormal Show, only on Parasearch UK Radio.
Good evening. You're listening to the Dark Mirror Paranormal Radio Show and you're listening to Parasearch UK Radio. My name is Kerry Greenaway and I'm here with my lovely co-host. Sorry about that. Mark Manley. Good evening.
Good evening. Apparently I'm sandy and craggy now, so yeah, hello.
Oh, my words. They're going to be all over the place tonight. I'm telling you now.
Yes, well, I'm not going to mention alcohol today.
Oh, okay. Okay. No. Blimey. Anyway, tonight's show is all about... Last weekend we went out and we did a little investigation in Epping Forest, didn't we, Mark?
We did, and it was quite eventful, actually.
It was really good. We thoroughly enjoyed it. And when we were doing the research for that event, it was such a wealth of information that we really thought... we should do a show on it because there's so much in Epping, isn't there?
Well, yeah, I mean, you've got all the history back from when there was tribes roaming across there and Boudica and all the Iceni and all the other tribes and the blood rites that went on and everything, and the witch trials up until now.
Yeah, there was so much. So we thought we'd do a little show on it for you guys, because, like I said, there's so much history and so many reported incidences. I said that right tonight. I'm quite impressed with myself. That fill this forest, isn't there?
Yeah, well, I mean, also the good thing about last weekend was we also gained 2 more people who want to join the Dark Knights team for Trent Paranormal.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Anyway, should we look at the history of Epping a little bit first, just a little bit, just to give people a taste of how old this forest is.
By all means.
Okay. Well, Epping Forest has been around for an awful long time, and the history runs from 700 BC to present day, and it has Roman stuff in it. It's got medieval history to it. It's got 17th and 18th century Victorians. It covers, doesn't it? And literally right up to present day.
That's right. And the church that we went to, All Saints Church at the top, wasn't it? That before there was a church built there, that was the grounds that I can't even pronounce the name of the tribe, but the tribe, one of the 2 warring tribes that was up there used to perform their blood rites and blood magic on that particular ground. Yes,
that's right. But there's more of a better link to that history than that, wasn't there? Because if you think about Loughton Camp that's in the forest...
Oh yeah, yes. And
that dates to 500 BC.
And that was an old Iron Age fort, wasn't it?
That's right. Yeah, that's in the forest. It's very difficult to find. Apparently, you need a map. You need to really research how to get there. And this isn't something we actually did on the night. We didn't go to Loughton Camp, but I thought it was really, really important to mention because they've had quite a lot of activity surrounding that. So I thought we'd quickly mention it because it's really old and it sort of gives you an idea of how old the forest is. But it is linked to these two tribes that Mark has just talked about in regards to this church. Now, I'm going to attempt to pronounce these tribes. I'm
looking at them now, so yeah, you go for it.
Yeah, Trinavante.
That's right, yeah.
I would say is one. And then the Catavilona or Cataviloni tribe.
Cataviloni, yes, it.
Yeah.
Cataviloni, yeah.
Yeah, now they were like living in this area, and there was lots of fights and stuff, and boundary markers, and it was all sorts of tribal things that they used to do. And what they had was this wasn't like back in the Iron Age, so Loughton Camp and Amesbury, is that right, Amesbury? Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, they reckon that these were animal folds, so in times of attack, what they'd do is they'd gather all their animals up, put them in this, like, fort thing that they'd built, and that it was easier to protect the animals. Now, lots and lots of things have been reported in regards to investigations around that. Mark?
Well, yeah, I mean, in particular, you've got the cries and yells that I heard in that one corner of the camp that's known as Kate's Cellar, which apparently part of the corner of the camp in the 13th century was they allowed a hermit lady to live there and, obviously do her ablutions and everything there. Nobody knows how she died or what she died of, but apparently she is seen there and she's heard there as well.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to find out more information about this Kate's Cellar.
Yeah, same here.
But there's not an awful lot, is there? I could only find a book that was referenced her, really, which was written by Lawrence R. Hall. And he basically wrote this book saying that Kate Cellar was a tiny, beautiful witch of Epping Forest, and that she waited at a wishing bridge for her knight to come, and he never did.
I couldn't find anything about it. I know that you can hear the drums of the warring tribes, and apparently they're heard quite often up there. So I think one day we should, because I did try and find a decent route into there, but I didn't think for the guests it would be appropriate at the time. But I think us as a team should go up there one day.
Yeah, because I found an investigation that a lady called Tracy Monger did, and I'm going to read to you what she said about this.
Name?
Monger, Monger.
Okay. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah. The path leading to Loughton Camp, a dog-type creature was sensed. A white figure was seen in the woods and footsteps were heard. A white vertical line about 1 metre in length was seen. Lights were seen in all areas of the camp and the feeling of being lifted. The feeling of a male standing close behind us, the name of Robert. They had problems with their walkie-talkies. Blue lights were seen. Marching was heard. Black shadows were seen. Shouting was heard. There were pinprick lights. Something was seen hiding behind the trees, which kept moving and then hiding behind more trees. It was human in size, but no noise with the movement. There were mists, and a female figure was seen by more than one person, and this figure's face was disfigured. The dictaphone recordings from the investigation recorded a strange rhythmic sound, and one light was seen moving from left to right, followed by another light moving from right to left. A human cry was heard, and a sound of 2 slaps were heard. Orange lights were seen, and then 4 people at the same time saw 4 figures looking like they were humans, but they were moving like they were floating and carrying lanterns, but they looked like they were from a different time period. They were absolutely flummoxed by that. They didn't know quite how to explain that one away. But there was a lot of things. They seemed to experience an awful lot of things at this Loughton camp, didn't they?
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, what you were saying about the dogs and stuff, I mean, there's black shucks supposedly seen up there anyway, and the things that were coming in out of the woods and watching people, we experienced exactly the same thing when we went down there, didn't we?
I don't think we went to Loughton camp, though, did we?
Oh, but we had the same watches in the woods, especially the bit next to the church. There was something watching us, but it was curious more than...
Oh, yeah, behind the church you're talking about.
Because we've got Stevie and Bridie listening in at the moment, and they came along with us, and it was Bridie who had the... I'll say elemental, and I use the term loosely because we don't know if it was elemental or forest watch or whatever, but that came through to her, didn't it?
Yes, it did. I mean, we didn't pursue that because I didn't feel it was appropriate with somebody who was not particularly experienced. But
Yeah, exactly.
It was interesting, and there's certainly not something to fear. The wood. If you're looking elemental and wood watchers, I'd never say that there was something to fear. But under the circumstances, it wasn't something, that I thought was appropriate.
No, it wouldn't have been good for her, bless her. Bridie, I know you're listening. You did. You all actually, everybody who came along did extremely well. I thought on the investigation, and I must admit, I thought it was good interaction all round from this side of the living and the other side of the living.
Yeah, it was a very interesting evening, wasn't it?
It was when a special guest whose name I cannot mentioned the fact that when one of the parts was on unconsecrated ground, and that would explain why we were getting the bad juju that we were.
Yeah, well, let's start at the beginning of where we started on the investigation, which was at the shack, wasn't it? The
Started off at Bert's Tea Shack, which is a famous biker meetup place, and we waited there for everybody to turn up with our torches on by the main road. And apparently some people got lost because they went to the wrong meeting point. I don't know. But after that, we proceeded to plod along into the car park where there has been a few bodies found and a few murders.
Yes, there was. Now, the area we were in is infamous, I think is the better word, for gangland killings. But
that's right, yeah.
I couldn't find any reported hauntings or activity linked to the incidents that happened in regards to the gangland killings. I'm not saying there aren't any, but I'm just saying I couldn't find any reported incidences.
No, I didn't. I just found the things that had happened there, but I couldn't find any definite proof. The bodies were definitely there, and there were murders carried out there, but as far as hauntings are concerned, nobody knows.
No, this is it. So although we are going to talk a little bit about some of the instances, because I think they're worth mentioning, because if we talk about situations where a haunting occurs because of it imprinting into the area.
Stone memory.
Yeah, well, emotional imprinting on the location. Then these would certainly fit that bio, wouldn't they? Because they were very traumatic.
Oh, definitely. I mean, where can we start with that one? I mean,
start with Patricia.
Was that the lady who was shot in the head with a crossbow bolt?
Yes.
Yes, unfortunately. Yes, not. She was I'm trying to use the term politely. She was a masseuse, he said in very loose letters, of the upper echelons, wasn't she?
She was. Yeah, she had a very rich client list, I think we can clarify.
That came through actually when who was doing the reading and they got money and clients come through. Lindsay got money, and I think it was was it yourself that came through with high-end clients?
No, I actually said an affair, didn't I? I said she was having affairs.
That's right, yeah, that's right.
To be fair, if we're going to be perfectly honest, I got affairs, so,
Well, yeah, Patricia Parsons,
It could be a reach. It's a reach.
Well, she was driven to the car park by a hired killer who was called Colin Rosenheim on the 23rd of June 1990, and unfortunately that poor woman, he then proceeded to beat her in the car and then shot her in the head and neck 3 times with a crossbow and just left her in the car. She was an attractive, wealthy 42-year-old masseuse who ran a parlour in Camden. She was, by all accounts, a sought-after masseuse and very discreet with sexual services, and had a very rich clientele. But from what I remember of the case, there was a little black book that she had, which had clients' names and addresses and sexual preferences and what they got up to. But that book went missing and was never found. And I think that came through again when we were doing the call-out. It said somebody picked up on the book, and that murder was all to do with the book or something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I find that quite interesting. It's quite a credible, I suppose, not alibi, motive. That's the word.
Exactly.
Opposite to alibi, motive. That why she got murdered. But I mean, we'll never know. But so we're just touching on these because these aren't alleged hauntings. These are just things that have happened in Epping Forest. And it's worth mentioning mainly because, like we said before, if it's to do with emotional imprinting, that would have been something that's quite, I would have thought, traumatic and emotionally charged situation. And it could possibly, in the future, be something that could possibly cause a haunting of some sort, possibly?
Possibly. Again, like you said, there's been no reports of it, but as to the where, why and who, she, one of her clients, well, among her clients, you had top judges and you had TV personalities and then some. So a lot of people would have had good reasons anyway. And there was also, who was it? Maxine Arnold and Terry Gooden were found in the woods, weren't they?
Yeah.
Circumstances, because there was supposed to have been a serial killer around at the time, or contract killer.
That's right. Yeah.
Go on, I was giving you a chance to talk then.
Sorry. I was waiting for you to continue. Sorry about that. Now, this is quite, I'm going to say it's recent history, isn't it? All of these gangland murders all happened in the 80s, really. So we are only going to touch on them, and it's not us to pass any judgments or anything on this, because obviously there's people still alive linked to these. Now this happened in December, and this couple basically left the Walthamstow flat with all their lights on. Her handbag was still in the flat, as was his watch and his wallet. They believe that they were set up to meet a contract killer, or that he came to the flat and he forced them to drive to Epping Forest. And basically, Maxine seemed to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. But they think this is they thought this was to do with money, and, as another gangland killing, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, we don't know, but anything that's to do with North London always seems to end up in the woods there.
It did. I mean, there was so many. Andy Mercer was with us that night, and he told us an interesting story about one of his friends that found some bin bags, and they were on their way. They took this track quite often, and they found some bin bags, and they were going to have a look in them, and then he said, no. They decided not to look into the bags. The next time they passed, it was cordoned off, and inside the bags were dismembered body parts, weren't there?
A prostitute was cut up and put in bin bags between 1985 and 1990.
Yeah, how awful.
Legend says it, because I couldn't find any details of it, but legend says it was a police officer who actually did it. Really? Yeah. So, now Andy says we can mention him. Yes, thank you very much, Andy. He was a great source of stories in the woods there.
So again, traumatic incident that could possibly lead in future to, if you're in the woods with the medium and they're picking up on this kind of information, then these things did happen in Epping Forest. Or does still happen in Epping Forest.
Exactly. I mean, there was that Indian guy who was stabbed. Was he stabbed through the heart, and then his body was set on fire to try and get rid of the evidence? Shah Ali.
Yeah, Shad Afrooj Ali from Bow.
Yeah, and it was his mistress, wasn't it? And her mistress and her brother.
But I was going to say, this isn't gangland. This was just a brother and a sister, wasn't it, that did this? But how awful. He was stabbed and his body was burned. I mean, poor man.
There was quite a few other bodies that have been found up there, and some are supposed to have been... trying to think what the name is for those killings. Honour killings. They think there's been quite a few honour killings up there. There was a lot of... gangland murders going down throughout the decades found up there. I mean, even this year, there was in January alone, there was it three gangland murders that were to do with gangland was found up there. There'd been 8 suicides by the end of January this year, from the beginning to the end of January, and there's always suicides up in the woods.
Yeah, I mean, we was talking to the forestry guy. That's not the right
forestry
term
constable,
for him.
Yeah.
Thank you. Forestry guy. And he was saying to us, wasn't he? He's saying, you just be careful in the woods, because there's a lot of people in the woods at night. You'd be surprised. I mean, luckily enough, both occasions we went there, we didn't come across anybody else, did we?
Well, no, I mean, there was that escaped convict, wasn't there, last time we went up there, who was running out in the woods in the middle of winter with no shoes on his feet.
It was absolutely freezing
Yeah.
that night. That was in January. It was absolutely freezing. But
That was when Daisy and
had...
Linz refused to get out of the car, wasn't
I don't blame them.
it?
In all honesty, I don't blame them. I mean, I'm more stupid than them, obviously.
I don't know, I was with you and I was like, go on, bring it on.
We never saw him, though. I'd just like to point that out.
No, we didn't. No.
No.
Unfortunately, when you go into the woods at that time of night, you do get the odd strange car rolling about that's full of doggers, but that's about it.
Well, I think most haunted places tend to be those kind of sites.
Pure filth. Yuck.
I
remember when we went to Cash's Well. And there was those doggers looking at us.
I was like, no, thank you. Go away.
No, really no.
Oh, my goodness me. They do tend to be a little like that, particularly the outdoor locations, I would say. Not so much the inside ones, but the outdoor locations like woods and particularly the car parks that you end up in to get into the woods or, something like that. They do tend to be a bit risque.
Yes. Not my cup of tea anyway.
Oh dear. Do you remember when we went to Hockley Woods, we pulled up in the car park and that great big police wagon followed us in? Was you there that night?
Linz does, I don't.
Yeah, we were sitting there going, oh my God, they're going to raid us. And we're going to hold our little gadgets up and go, we're paranormal investigators.
Oh yeah, what are you going to be doing with those gadgets?
Yeah, it was quite an eye-opener that night, I have to say. Anyway, off topic, let's get back onto Epping. Let's get back onto Epping Forest. Now, as we said, there are loads and loads. We couldn't actually believe when we was talking to the Forestry Commissioner that there was so many suicides and deaths still occurring in the forest. That actually took me back.
Exactly. I mean, it reminded me of those woods. I can never pronounce the name, but those woods on Mount Fuji where everybody goes to commit suicide.
Yeah. What do you think on that?
What, the Mount Fuji ones?
No, the Epping Forest ones.
I think it's desolate, out of the way, and they're not going to be found for a long time. And unfortunately, if you're that low down and in that frame of mind, that's exactly what you want to be able to do that.
Yeah, I suppose that's what it is. I mean, it is.
Nobody Japanese ones were used. That's because back a few hundred years ago, when there was famines and everything like that, unfortunately, they used to take the old and infirmed and disabled up to those woods, and they'd leave them there to die, so that there was more food for everybody else. And that's why those woods became haunted, and that's why it's got such an oppressive feel to it, and that's why people still got there now to kill themselves.
And you think that's the same principle, basically, on Epping?
I think that's possibly why you have the same spot used down over the years, yes.
Okay.
You've got the desolation, and you've got the legends that go with it, and you've also got the fact that, as I said, nobody's going to go there for a while.
Yeah, I suppose, if you're really serious about it, you're going to do it in a more remote location, aren't you?
Exactly. Andy and Richard, who are in the chat room, can you remember the name of the woods there on Mount Fuji?
Well, I'm sure they'll get back to you. Right, so from there, we went for a little walk, didn't we, through the woods around that shack. And,
right.
How I work very, as Kerry Ann says, I work with my feet.
We followed the bloodhound.
Yeah, well, sort of. And I don't kind of get, spirits and stuff, physical beings come to me. I can't work that way, but I kind of get pulled to, energy spots, I suppose you would call it, wouldn't you?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So we walked through there and we did a little pendulum little experiment, didn't we?
That's right. And that was really good.
Did you enjoy that?
Yeah, I mean, every time I've done one of those, people seem to like doing the pendulums. And then watching you all using the pendulums, you could see who'd done it before and who hadn't, and who actually had quite a bit of power there and was picking it up really well. And everybody I spoke to afterwards, Bridie, who's listening, Stevie, the two American ladies, and they really, really, really enjoyed it. So that's a favourite among guests.
Yeah, do you want to tell, when we was doing the pendulums, we got I'm just going to call it a spirit, for argument's sake, because there are theories, as to why pendulums work and all the rest of it regarding your own personal energy, and, your conscious is picking up on only a set amount of information, whereas your subconscious is picking up on a lot more, and that is translated through your body into the pendulum. But so their theories, that's sort of how the pendulum sort of is supposed to work, or it's just you moving it. But I know my hand is quite steady.
So the rumours are, yeah.
You're so bad.
Anyway.
Anyway, we got a spirit of a lad, didn't we?
That's right, 17, wasn't he?
Yeah, and he was getting, people were getting physical feelings.
Yeah, they were, because he was, was his name Bartholomew?
Yeah.
Bartholomew, that was right. And he was a poacher from around King Henry VIII's time, wasn't he? Or poacher's apprentice. And unfortunately, he had been found by King Henry VIII's men or gamekeepers, and he had been executed on the spot with, was it 2 arrows, one to the stomach and one to the neck?
Yeah, I think so. I can't remember off the top of my head, actually.
You were all picking up on pains to the tummy, weren't you?
I was going to say, people were picking up, I wasn't, but there were people within our group that were getting physical feelings as well.
That's right, yeah, because Bridie was, and the taller one of the 2 American ladies, she was, but it turns out she had a bit of a gift anyway, didn't she? Yeah,
she was very coy about that to start with, and as the evening progressed, it transpired a lot more, didn't it? But it was a very interesting experiment to do with people that had never used pendulums.
It's, as I say, it seems to be, when I did the Halloween one at Canvey Island, everybody seems to enjoy doing the pendulums because they get out of it what they put into it,
Yeah, it is a very interesting experiment. I use my pendulums quite a lot in the work that I do with crystals and balancing energies and stuff like that. So I find them an incredibly useful tool, and I use them in an investigation. So for me to actually do an on-the-spot, almost like a mini workshop, was really interesting to me.
Well, I like doing it, and I'm going to be doing that every opportunity that I can whenever we do a Dark Nights tour, or whenever we do a Trident one, because I just there's something about it. I haven't got it in me to do it, but I love watching it, and I love watching everybody's reactions when they get their first yes and their first no, and they know it's which one it is, and it's their face when they go,
I know, it's quite something, isn't it?
Definitely. And when you did Human Pendulum with Bridie, wasn't it?
Yeah, we'll talk about that when we talk about the church, because, that was where we did that, wasn't it?
This is very true. I do think, seeing as it's 5:30, have a commercial break, and then we will talk about it afterwards.
I think you're right there. I think you're very right.
You're listening to Parasearch UK Radio. News, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. Parasearch UK Radio.
Welcome back. As Mark chatting away to me in the little break there. Anyway, when we finished with that area, before we left that area, we went on a little bit further, didn't we? And we did a little spirit box session.
That's right, yeah.
But we didn't get many good results on the spirit box, did we?
No, that wasn't very good. But then we found that fallen tree, didn't we? And the burning smell.
Now that was really interesting to me.
Mm.
Now the night we were out was very, very still. There wasn't wind, the trees weren't moving. It was very, very still. Now I do know that smells carry.
That's right, because it was Stevie that found the smell.
Night, even on the stillest night, a smell will carry quite a way. But this smell, first of all, when we were doing the spirit box, we were a little bit away from this area, but we could see it. So it was sort of like through the trees, 100 yards, 150 yards
That's
away,
right, yeah. We went over there and Stevie was going, can you smell something?
And we got a first whiff of it when we was doing the spirit box. Well, then after that, what we did was we then, a couple of the people said they felt like they were being watched from that area. So we took a wander over there, didn't we? Now, this area was like a fallen down trunk, and the smell of burning was so strong.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, definitely.
Anyway, we turned all the lights off because we wanted to see if we could sort of, I know we're in the woods, but we wanted to sort of see if you could see a fire or, smoke on the air or something like that, but you couldn't see any of that, could you?
No, nothing at all.
And then the smell went, didn't it?
Yeah, it was bizarre. The smell went, and then it came back with a sort of rotting badger type smell, and then it kept sort of going between the rotting flesh smell to burning, and then gradually it dissipated, didn't it?
And then it went completely. Now, smells will carry, regardless of the condition, the weather conditions. I will say that. So it's probably very innocent. But I did try and find out to see if there were any known fires, obviously, in the forest that night. And I couldn't. There wasn't anything reported from the Forestry Commission or from the fire brigade in that area.
How bizarre.
So I did try and check, but that doesn't mean to say there wasn't somebody in the woods having
it could have been somebody's garden fire,
It could have been somebody having their own little private back campfire.
Well, it says Jay Lynch is in the room, and he's just said, just ask a skunk how far their smell will carry.
Yeah. So we're not saying it's paranormal at all, but it was just a little strange, wasn't it? How it came and went, bearing in mind how still that forest was that night.
I mean, it was eerily still, that place. I mean, we've been up there a few times before, and it's never been that still.
No, there was literally no movement in the trees at all.
No, and I mean, normally when we're up there, we'll hear owls at least, and maybe deer moving about in the forest, but nothing.
No, there was literally nothing at this particular point in time. It was a little strange.
Funnily enough, we were all snapping away, taking photos and that.
Mm-hmm.
Bridie sent me some of her photos, and I'll send them to you later. Now, a lot of her photos and a lot of my photos, you've got in the background reflections of leaves that look like faces, but there's the odd couple of photos that Bridie's got and the odd couple that we've got, isn't there? Mm-hmm. And I cannot tell you what that is in the background, but it's like eyes looking at you. I'll send them to you later, and you see what you think. Okay,
but wouldn't, playing devil's advocate on that one, we are in a forest that have known deers. And we saw a rabbit. We did.
Yeah, the rabbit
and we all went, run, bunny, run. And so eyes in the forest at night in photographs, I kind of think animals.
They could be, but they were like human height. So the only thing that would come near to that would be a deer.
I was going to say, deers can be quite tall, can't they? When they've got their heads up.
Well, as I say, I mean, I'll send them to you and you see what you think.
Yeah, I'll have a look at them. No, I'm not discounting them. I'm just sort of, playing devil's advocate, really.
But it was also, when we went in the second part of the woods where the church is, and we all said there was something watching us, and then when I thought somebody was looking over, I turned over and looked towards Andy, and he said that's where that thing was that came in to look at us closely.
Mm.
Well, that's where some of the photos were coming from as well.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah, well, I'll send them to you later, see what you think.
Okie dokes. Well, we then went on from that point. We then got back in the cars and we went to the church, didn't we? Now, this particular church is called the Church of the Holy Innocents, and it was built by a guy called Thomas Baring of the Baring Brothers Bank. Daughter. Yeah. Now, he built this church because he actually had some children who died at a young age. So he built the church in their memory. Now, what an interesting place.
It certainly is. I mean, the church itself, I mean, one of the times we've been in there, we did do a spirit box session in the church, and we had, I always forget his name, came through on the spirit box, remember?
Alistair
Crowley, that's right.
which is interesting because he has no links to Epping Forest whatsoever.
Exactly. And he kept laughing and taunting one of them, didn't he, when he came through?
He did. It was, that particular evening was, I have to say, in the team we were with, it was a bit of a strange evening for all of us on a group front. What had happened was we'd done an investigation a couple of weeks previous, and there had been a situation that had transpired that wasn't very good, wasn't it?
Right, yeah.
And coming off the back of that investigation, we thought we'd do a nice easy one in Epping Forest, and to sort of like rebond and regroup basically, and get the vibe back amongst the group. And we went to this particular church, and now we did get this on the Spirit Box, and because of the situation between the personalities in the group on that night and the unnerving of that name, it's difficult to say, but I'm putting it out there because I don't want to sort of not put the full picture out there of that particular evening. But it basically unnerved us a little more than expected, is how we can explain it. Because we were behind the church, down the side of the church and behind the church, and there was such a feeling of foreboding, wasn't there?
Oh, very, very definitely. I mean, when we went down the side of that church, not this Saturday just gone, but that time we went down there with our old group, we basically got thrown out of the woods at the side by unseen forces, didn't we?
Well, it felt like they were surrounding us and pushing us out the forest. So when we went back with this event, we was a little
hesitant.
Careful, I think is the expression. We were very careful, particularly with what we had experienced previously under a different private team investigation. So anyway...
Well, I was going to say, you consider that event had such a lasting effect on Daisy and my other half, Lindsay, that they refused to get out of the car and come into that side of the woods with us this time.
That's true. That's very, very true. And we made, we said we were quite honest with the guys that were with us, because there was quite a few different people with us this night.
That's right.
And we had explained what had happened last time, and we said, right, we're going to do it. We're going to go around the back of the church, and we're going to see what's what. And it had a completely different feel, didn't it, when we first went in? Very, very different, yes. It wasn't bad at all, was it?
No, when we went up there last time, it was completely benign. There was nothing wrong. I will say when we went in this time, it did feel like somebody was watching us.
Which would make sense, being as like, when we went to the back of the church, we went actually further in the woods at the back of the church than we had done previously. And
we went right down the back.
We didn't really quite deep away from the church. We couldn't see the church, from where we were. And that's where we decided to do some human pendulums, wasn't it?
That's right.
And the first human pendulum we did was with one of the guests. And
Friday, wasn't it?
No, one of the guests.
Oh, yes, the American lady, yes.
Yeah. And she channeled a girl called Rebecca.
That's right.
And this is where her coyness sort of like... we then realised that she knows what she's doing with this stuff, didn't we?
I turned around, didn't I? I said, this lady knows her stuff, wasn't it? And then she said, actually.
Exactly. But she didn't feel bad or anything. It was a really interesting experiment. She reacted very well under the human pendulum. We got some good answers, didn't we?
Exactly. There was some very, very good stuff coming through. I mean, that's the first time I've seen somebody who's not ever done this before and was a complete non-believer come along and have a elemental type thing immediately latch on and say hello. I've not seen that before.
No, I'd not come across them coming that close to work in a human pendulum before. And
exactly.
As I say, only didn't continue with that, only because of the situation we were in. It was a public investigation. And although I know a little about elementals, I'm not an authority. I know we had somebody with us who knows a lot more. But because the person that was being the pendulum was such a novice, I didn't want to take any risks, I suppose, is the
Oh,
expression.
you wanted to protect them, yeah.
You know what I mean? I just thought it was better to, if do it under a more experienced person's situation more than that particular situation. But yeah, that was because I was feeling, and I actually said, "Are you human?" And it said no.
Yeah, that's right. And you said it was almost like a dog's intelligence.
I don't remember saying that.
When we were talking about it and you were trying to describe how intelligent they are, you said they're almost like a dog or something. They understand and they get very curious.
Oh, very much so. Yeah, they do get incredibly... Well, they're watchers of the woods. They're actually in the woods watching and protecting the woods. So when they've got like groups of people in the woods and you're working on an energy level, of course they're going to be attracted to that.
Mm.
Of course they are.
It was definitely very interesting. I mean, the negative energy that we originally first felt in there, that wasn't there. There was definitely someone or some things, and I say plural, watching us, because, yeah, definitely something watching us. And then on a more personal note, a person who was there as a member of their family came through to speak to them, didn't they?
Yeah.
Which was quite touching, and... yeah, we won't go into that for their privacy, but
no.
It was a very, very interesting night. A lot happened, and it was quite nice having a small group because we could spend more time doing more experiments, especially the pendulums, the human pendulum, and the calling out.
That's right, yeah. We even had a few hits on the K2, didn't we?
Well, the K2 was on the floor over by one of the trees. Nobody was near it, and every now and again it kept going off, and even Andy came over and said, "You do realise that's gone off when you were calling out?"
Yeah. I found that quite interesting.
And that was when the elemental one came through?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was. But,
that was it at that time.
That's right. And you had Andy going over. He was wandering off looking for things in the woods as well. And he was picking up on stuff in there, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, our lovely Andy Mercer was with us that night. And, we love a woods, don't we, to be fair?
I've heard the rumour.
Not in that way. We're kindred spirits in that way, as I think is the expression. Now,
exactly. I'd like Andy to come along on future ones actually, because it was really nice to have him along.
He's an absolute wealth of information, that man, and I adore him. I think I've got so much time for him; it's untrue. Now, we ended the investigation at that church, but there are some more places and things about Epping Forest that we want to cover quickly. First one is Hangman's Hill.
Yes. That's just further up from the church.
It is just further up from the church, and it's an incredibly interesting place because it's known as what's known as a gravity hill.
That's right, yeah, and it's an optical illusion.
It is an optical illusion, but there is a legend that surrounds it.
Yeah, about the back along 17th century, the judge. I don't think we managed to get his name, but there was the judge of the High Beach area. Anyway, he was a bit of a nasty person, or it was local judge executioner, late 1600s, early 1700s, and his thing was to stand at the bottom of the hill, and there's one big tree at the top of the hill, and he'd go up to the top, put his rope round it, come back down the bottom, put the rope round the neck of the person who was going to be hung, and he basically had them dragged all the way up the road by the neck and then up into the tree until they were dead. So that's how it got known as Hangman's Hill. But also, because there's an optical illusion there, it looks like you're on a hill. So you can park your car on the hill, leave the handbrake off, and the car will go, what you think, uphill, start to roll uphill. But if you get spirit level out, it's not. It's actually very slightly pointing downhill. But the eye level makes you think it's going uphill. So it's quite an interesting optical illusion there.
It is, and there's a few places in the UK that have this particular phenomenon, and it's been looked into scientifically, and there is an explanation for it. But it doesn't change the fact that it's really quite interesting if it happens to you.
Exactly. I'm just looking in the chat room here, and Andy says there's something that we all sensed moved towards the group, and Mark, myself, looked in exactly the right direction when it moved. And yeah, he's right, I did.
That's right, and it's a really good example of your body picking up energy without you even realising that you're doing it. That's why we say our body is one of the best tools you can have on an investigation.
Exactly. I mean, what else have you? I'm trying to think what else you've got up there. There's been UFO sightings up there, quite a lot of UFO sightings actually. You had Dick Turpin hiding out in the caves up there. In fact, I did a bet, didn't I? On Saturday night.
Yes, you did, but nobody got that name.
No, nobody did. I wanted to see if anybody would come through and get the name Dick, as in Dick Turpin, and I didn't say the name or anything, but nobody got through. I think somebody got the letter, didn't they?
Well, no, that was when we was talking about Bartholomew.
Ah, right. Well, yeah, nobody came through with it. I think somebody did pick up on a highwayman, though, but it wasn't Dick Turpin.
No.
He did.
No.
No.
Anyway. Now, Dick Turpin has allegedly been seen in these woods as an apparition, hasn't he? Or very, honest to goodness, there is so much we found that of people that had experiences in the forest, and it's crazy almost, wasn't there?
Well, I want to go back and do another investigation in there, because not only was it popular, it was a really still night, and the conditions were just absolutely spot on, and all those experiments and every single thing we did, we got a hit. So definitely going to be doing another Dark Nights walk in there, I think. Do you?
I think it's worth doing. I definitely think it's worth doing, because there is so much. I mean, amongst some of the alleged hauntings in this, that you get in this area, I mean, there's phantom figures carrying lanterns. People have electrical problems with their cars. Grey figures in the road. I mean, there's a particular roundabout that's absolutely notorious hotspot for alleged.
That was just up from where we were, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's not far from where we were. There's a ghost figure that's supposed to run in front of cars. That's been seen on numerous occasions. There's, like I say, there's highwaymen allegedly been seen, and all sorts of things. I mean, Dick Turpin himself is a fascinating case history of a not very nice person back in the day.
Yeah, he wasn't nice at all.
He wasn't at all. Do you want to tell us a little bit about Dick Turpin?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Dick Turpin, you've got the old series that was on in the 70s and 80s with Richard O'Brien played Dick Turpin as, the dashing highwayman who kissed the ladies and robbed from the rich and this, that and the other. But you couldn't be further from the truth if you tried. I mean, Dick Turpin, for a start, was covered in scars all over his face and body from a bad case of the pox, which he caught. And yeah, I am talking BD, the pox. He had a gang. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He had a gang in the early days, the Gregory gang, which was made up of Samuel, Jeremiah and Jasper Gregory, along with Joseph Rose, Mary Brazier, unusual to have a lady in with a gang, John Jones, Thomas Rowden and John Wheeler. And if I remember right, in fact, no, I'll get onto that one in a minute. But he used to, Dick Turpin wasn't fussed if he tortured people. He'd break into people's houses, and if they didn't tell him... There was an old couple whose house he broke into with the gang, and he wanted to know where the valuables were, and the old boy wouldn't tell him, so he literally got the old boy and pushed him backside first into the fire, so his arse was burning, until they told him where the valuables were. And the lady was raped, and, the only thing he did draw the line on was killing people, until he himself killed that poacher in Epping, killed the gamekeeper in Epping Forest when he was hiding out at the time. That's why he fled.
This is true. I just want to point out, you said Richard O'Brien and it was Richard O'Sullivan.
Yeah, he wasn't bald, was he?
It puts a whole different spin on it if it was Richard O'Brien.
Rocker!
But no, I remember that TV series. I remember watching it. I loved it. It was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I used to watch it. And
but it romanticised him. It romanticised him, didn't it? That was the problem with all of the Dick Turpin TV series and stuff like that. It romanticised the horrible man that he actually was.
Yeah, he was an awful, awful person. Yeah, not very nice whatsoever. And I'm just trying to remember the name of the guy that hung him, who was his executioner, because his executioner was actually an old member of his gang, who was granted clemency if he would do the job as York's executioner, didn't he?
Yeah.
Just trying to find his name. Carry on talking amongst yourselves.
Now, the only act of gallantry I think Dick Turpin did was he actually went to the gallows in full flamboyant style, and he was bowing to the crowd and waving to the crowd, and he
clothes and everything, wasn't it?
That's right. He climbed to the gibbet and sat for an hour chatting to the guards and the executioner, and then apparently the only act of courage that they said he ever did was he just threw himself off the ladder and expired apparently in about 5 minutes.
Yeah,
that's quite a long time, isn't it? Really, when you think about it.
Well, back then, if it was like gallows like that, they didn't bother to measure the rope or take him the drop effect or anything, did they?
No. I mean, oh goodness me! The more I read about him.
Her.
Well, the more I read about Dick Turpin, the more I was thinking, what a horrible person.
Yeah, no, he wasn't very nice whatsoever. Especially when you read about the rapes and the fact that he just didn't give a monkeys if he used torture or not.
No,
that's the bit that got me.
I suppose in context, back in the day, it was quite a bloodthirsty and that kind of, fight to survive kind of situation they were in.
Well, it's like, Thomas Hadfield was his executioner, and Thomas Hadfield was one of the main people of his gang. And when he fled to York, Thomas Hadfield was actually in York jail. And when they actually caught Dick Turpin, they said to him, look, to Thomas Hadfield, will you be his executioner? If so, because we haven't got one in the town of York, we will pardon you and you can go a free man. And he went, yeah, all right. So there's obviously no honour among thieves. No,
I think one thing has come overlooking various stories over the years, when we're looking at investigations, it's very clear that, honour amongst thieves is not something that really was happening.
Oh, they weren't averse to slitting each other's throats just to pick up the pay or turning each other in just to get a bounty on them.
Yeah. But like I say, you've got to keep it in context of the time that these people were living. And it was a very full of poverty and hardship. And it really was fight to survive scenario. And that kind of brings out the worst in people when you're living under those conditions.
Well, yeah, exactly. You look at that poor lad that you picked up on the meat, the 17-year-old poacher's boy. He didn't want to be there. He didn't want to be poaching. And his mum told him not to go, didn't? Because we picked up on that, wasn't it? His mum begged him not to go because he wouldn't come back. And he went and he never came back.
No, because he got shot. Because, Epping Forest was once a hunting ground for the king, where he used to go and just shoot deer for fun, And it was like you couldn't poach. Poaching was, really bad.
Well, yeah, even if you you had the forest law where you could go and cut wood, you could get turf, and you could let your cattle graze on forest land that belonged to the king. And even to this day, that law about letting your cattle graze on there still stands. The others don't. But back then, if you even killed a rabbit on that land, that's it. You would be killed as a poacher, even if it was a rabbit.
Yeah, and yet all you're doing is really trying to get food for your family.
Exactly, and back then the king's gamekeepers, they only had one punishment for poaching, be it just getting a wild animal that be anywhere anyway, as in a rabbit, and that was death. Didn't matter what you did, the fee you paid was death.
Mhm. Well, they're just shot without asking many questions.
Exactly. Well, as that poor lad attested to, he got beaten senseless, and then they shot him with crossbows, wasn't it?
Yeah. One thing's for very, very sure is that Epping Forest is a fascinating place to go to. And it's beautiful as well. It's absolutely beautiful in there as well, isn't it?
Oh, yes, definitely. And I'll tell you what I'd like to do one day up there. And I don't know if Paul Rook's listening or if he's up for it. I'd quite like to go right up to the top of the woods where the UFO sightings are seen and just do a stake out there for a couple of hours, see what we can see in the sky.
Like a night watch.
Exactly, see if we can see anything.
So, I haven't...
Then I can go, aliens, and mean it.
Oh, my goodness me.
Did it? I did it. I got it
I thought we were safe on this show. I thought we were safe. I thought we're doing Epping Forest. Yes, okay, so there have been UFO sightings, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about anything but aliens. And I really didn't think he was going to be able to get that into the show tonight, Mark. But I have to give you 10 out of 10 for...
I have to have kudos for that, yeah, definitely.
I do have to give you a little bit of a clap for that.
But yes, got to do an alien watch up there one night. I think that'd be quite a good idea. And I do want to do another ghost walk through Epping Forest later on in the year when the weather's a lot warmer.
It was very interesting. It's a fascinating place. There's so many places of interest in there that have, like we said, have got alleged hauntings. We've only touched on a few of them. I mean, there was Chingford Plains. I was talking to a guy earlier today where they used to hold Victorian fairs where, like, you'd have the gypsy readings and, the curiosity displays of people, like the old barroom type things. And...
Yeah.
All that sort of thing. And apparently they hear stuff on the plane. Oh, and, I mean, we haven't even touched on the history regarding the war. I mean, that place got bombed quite extensively, didn't it?
It did. And there's also, as Andy says in the chat room, there was the beech tree as well, which I'm guessing that's why it's named High Beech, after the herbalist who lived there.
Yeah. I mean, as I say, we've only literally touched on the edges of Epping Forest. I need to give you a bit of an overview about what we got up to when we went out investigating, because we do like to let you guys know what we get up to as well, not just on radio shows, but we do get out and about in the field as well sometimes. And it's interesting to sort of hear other people's experiences. I mean, I got talking to quite a few different people regarding Epping Forest, and everybody had a story. Every single person had a story of something they couldn't explain. It was a bit unusual. They're not saying it's paranormal or spiritual activity, but they couldn't explain it. It was an eerie feeling, or it was a strange feeling. There was a lot of that. Do you know what I mean? We experienced this. I know if I was an indoor location, I would be able to explain it like this, but we were in the woods, and you can't translate atmosphere into... You can't.
It's a totally different feeling.
Explain it, can you? You just can't explain it.
One thing I'm thinking of doing, because Bert's Tea Shack is a famous meeting point for bikers, I'm seriously thinking of taking my bike and Lindsay and going up there one weekend and having a mooch around ourselves, isn't it? Okay, maybe I'll be doing it on my own then. But
I love the laugh, the little laugh anyway. in the background. I love that little laugh of Lindsay going, oh, yeah, right.
I think I might go there by myself then on my motorbike. And,
I won't be going anywhere near the church.
You won't be going anywhere near the church? No, see, she won't go near the church.
This is the thing with the church. It really freaked out two members of the team that we were there with previous to this investigation. That much that they will not go back. And it was very, very surreal that night.
Definitely. Jay Lynch, who's in the chat room there over in America, whenever you come over to the UK and you're doing any investigating over here, if you want to come out with me one night, we'll get on the bike and we'll go up to Epping Forest and have a nosy, if you like. You're on for that.
I think that sounds like a plan. We're starting to get a list for Jay, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly. We can either go up on the bike or in the car, doesn't matter where. He'll sit backwards on the bike so it doesn't make it weird.
What?
He's going to sit backwards on the bike so it doesn't make it weird. So in other words, his man garden is not touching me.
Okay, yeah, you didn't need to. I got it.
Okay, Jay, you're on.
I did get it. But as I said, one thing is for sure about Epping Forest, it is full of history. If you've not looked into it, it's absolutely jam-packed, full of history. We've literally touched on the edges of the history with this. We wanted to concentrate on what we experienced when we went to Epping Forest. And we're now coming to the end of the show, Mark.
Yeah, well, just to say, we have got to go back to Epping Forest again this year. It's got to be done. It
definitely has. I think that's definitely on the list. Anyway, on that note, thank you all for joining us in the chat room. It's always great reading your comments as we're doing the show.
What's next week's show?
Oh my goodness, it's all changed. I had to change it all today. We're doing the Voynich
manuscript.
That's the one. That's what we're doing next week. Never heard of it. You brought this one to the table.
It's actually very interesting, that.
Yeah, well, you brought this one to the table. I'm going to have to do a lot of reading and research this week on that particular subject, so that's going to be interesting to me. You know a little bit about it, don't you?
I know a little bit about it, and all I'll say is they still haven't been able to decipher what on earth it's about. All I know is that one of the chapters in it is about medicine, and various other things, but they cannot decipher the languages in it.
So it could be quite a quick show then.
Well, we can do the Voynich manuscript amongst others.
And on that note, thank you so much for joining us, and good night. Say good night, Mark.
Good night, Mark. Thank you for listening in the room and out there in Radioland, guys. Appreciate it.
Okay, good night, guys.
You're listening to Parasearch UK Radio. News, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. Parasearch UK Radio.